16 Grand Prix events make up the F1 World Championship season, and one of the most looked forward to is the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. This individual race meeting so well reflects what Formula One is all about. The excellence of a huge crowd watching the world's top race machinery and drivers compete on a super fast, challenging circuit. But these same elements are present at the other 15 locations around the globe. So which one of them is pushed far beyond normal limits to produce the uniqueness of Monza? Unquestionably, it's the Italian race fans that descend upon this little community from all over the country. They are the most emotional, energetic, vibrant, and generally bizarre Grand Prix spectators to witness an event all year long. It is their overwhelming enthusiasm that switches on the high-voltage power around the Monza circuit and electrifies this three-day weekend. They arrive via every form of transportation, from Maserati to Fiat 500, train to hitchhiking. Literally hundreds of thousands of them use this event to release 12 months of Grand Prix anticipation, for they look forward to and plan their participation in the Italian GP all year long. Accurate numbers are difficult because so many find their own private entrance gate rather than purchase a ticket. But for sure, over 450,000 people will watch this Friday to Sunday show. The vantage points may vary from reserved seats in covered grandstands to atop towering track signs, to being a fourth-floor resident of your own private high-rise, to just seeking out the best place possible around this 3.6-mile course. Well, where the fans watch from may vary, but what they come to see is the same. Ferrari is the lifeblood of this huge motorsports-loving crowd. The Prancing Horse team is their 700 horsepower, 200-mile-an-hour representative that so well carries Italian pride and prestige around the world. This love affair is so intense it reaches deep into their hearts and minds. The ultimate fantasy of every Italian fan is to drive the red cars of Team Ferrari. The closest they can come to living their dream is to watch, hear, and maybe even touch one of these most coveted F1 automobiles. They eagerly offer every last ounce of emotion, hoping that somehow it will assist and contribute to what must be a Ferrari weekend. The response from technical director Mario Foghetti sums it up best. Monza is about Ferrari and its fans. This is our team's most important Grand Prix. So it is this overwhelming energy from nearly 500,000 emotional people that generates the uniqueness of the Italian Grand Prix. This is John Bizignano, about 10 miles north of Milano in Monza, Italy. I'll be your host along with Simon Taylor for this 90-minute ESPN coverage of the Italian Grand Prix for Formula One race cars. Simon and I will be presenting technical reports, driver interviews, all the latest F1 updates, plus the fantastic Grand Prix race action. So please join us after these short messages for the 14th Grand Prix of the 1984 season and a close look at the timing and qualifying technique of Formula One. We'll be right back. Long gone from official timing and scoring are the hopefully accurate thumbs on mechanical stopwatches. Casper Arnett, manager of Longines Timing for Formula One, describes their complex Grand Prix operation.
Today we can say that we have the most sophisticated system, which consists that each car has a little box. This box is called the sender, transmitter. Each transmitter works on its own frequency, can be mounted wherever it is on the car. We prefer far away from the engine in order not to interfere any technical or electronic interference. From this box out, as you can see, the wire goes down, comes out behind the dry angle, And as soon as it comes out from here, this cable is an antenna. And as soon as this cable crosses the start-finishing line, it gives out a signal to the ground, goes through the timing into the computer system, fully automatic. You don't have to do anything about it.
At the end of a qualifying hour, what type of information is available to the teams from this system?
Well, at the end of each practice, we print out a complete sheet which gives the position of the cars. All the teams and the press gets informations where all the laps are registered, written on it the time, the individual time, immediately positioned where the fastest time on which lap has been proceeded, and at the same time prints out the speeds, the top speed at the start finishing line, printed out in kilometers and miles per hour.
You have a tremendous amount of equipment in the pit area, television sets, almost miles of cables and computers. How many people work for you, and what sort of logistic problems do you have in setting up?
We're about 14 people setting that up. We have about 30 cases, 1 ton of material, and something of 50 TV monitors in order to set up the internal information set on the screen.
How many days does it take to organize that? Because when everyone else arrives, it's all ready to go. I mean, and it looks like it just happens so easily.
Well, we arrive on Monday before the race day. Tuesday, Wednesday is, as a matter of fact, setting up. On Thursday is the day we build up the transmitters into the car, tests in the afternoon, and Friday morning we have to be ready for practice.
What are some of the problems, though? I mean, every system still has its moments of problem.
Yes, we have one problem with this, because the transmitter works on a battery, and as you know, it is impossible to know in advance how long lasts a battery. You know, you can only measure today. A battery is okay, is in good or not, but you never know when it lasts. So it can happen that during practice time the battery goes flat, but for that we have the backup system, which is the well-known light beam and TV monitor system, which picks up 100 pictures a second as well. So we have altogether 3 timing systems, and with that we never failed so far having time. Teams must prepare their cars to maximum performance specifications for both race and qualifying conditions. We asked Gordon Murray, Chief Engineer Designer for the current World Champions, Team Parmalat Brabham, about his approach to the task. Gordon, how much difference is there between preparing a car for optimum performance for a race or for a qualifying session?
A big difference, really, because it affects the chassis, the tyre choice, and the engine, and the driver, in fact.
So really the whole element changes.
It's 2 completely different things, yeah.
So how do you set up a car to go as fast as possible for 1 or 2 laps?
Well, from the driver's point of view, it needs a completely different style of driving, which is important to us too, because the way he drives the car dictates the way you have to set it up to handle. It has to be set up to do just a one-off quick lap, which is a completely different thing from setting a car up so it's not very hard on its tyres for the length of a race. So we do make very different chassis and aerodynamic adjustments for a one-off lap.
Are the rings more flat so they go faster on a straight line?
It's very complex. That depends on how soft the qualifiers are, if it's a fast circuit, if it has a lot of chicanes, as to how much wing you run in qualifying. There's no simple answer to that, really, but the amount of wing is important.
So you don't only have to tune for a qualifying session, but for a qualifying session at each particular track?
Oh, absolutely. It's very different at different circuits.
When you look at the car, you must see almost a time machine. Do you see things that you can say we go stiffer or harder here? That could be a half a second or a tenth of a second, or
we talk in time, and you work in time all the time, because the only thing we have to judge the car's performance again, whether it's qualifying or race setup, is time. So we know we talk in tenths or half seconds, and we know we can get a tenth from the dampers or 2/10 from the suspension settings or half a second from the wing. We monitor the car's speed through speed traps all the time. And yes, that's the language we use.
You were fastest in this morning's practice session, but you're still looking for that extra tenth now.
Yes, but the car is just about perfect at the moment, and when it comes down to that, the extra tenth comes from the driver, whether it gets a clear lap or not, and if you can squeeze a bit more out of the engine, really.
So after all the intensive thought and hopefully quicker changes have been dialed into the machinery, it's down to the driver to extract the maximum performance possible from the car and himself. We talked to Toman's new recruit, Stefan Johansson, about what it's like to lay it on the line while hunting for a tenth of a second.
You normally know fairly well if you do a good lap or not a good lap, because you judge your speed by the revs you have when you come out of a corner, the time when you brake. You have marks, or at least I have marks everywhere on the circuit, so I know if I pass this mark I go a little bit faster, and you know the revs you have in every corner when you come out at a certain point. So you can fairly well tell within a tenth of a second what time you're doing.
So all the way around this circuit, you have a clock going on inside your head that's saying this is faster, this is quicker.
More or less, yeah.
Or slower.
Yes, that's right.
You hear drivers say, I found a tenth of a second, or there's another second out there, or I lost a tenth of a second. What does that mean?
Well, if you lost a tenth of a second, that means you might have, missed a brake into a corner, or missed a turn into a corner a little bit, or gone a little bit too fast, so you had a moment coming out of the corner, maybe. Or if you find a second, well, you know that by, you pick up 300 revs coming out of a fast corner, or you brake, 20 yards later, or, whatever.
When you're out there in qualifying, you have to prepare yourself mentally to break new ground. I mean, each lap you're trying to go into a new territory where you've never been before with that car or yourself. That can be a bit dangerous.
It says in the back of the ticket that motor racing is dangerous.
The drivers don't buy tickets, I mean.
That's true. No, I mean, you obviously push yourself and the car to, as you say, to find the new limit, but I mean, you know, or at least I know, you know fairly well where the limit is, and you don't sort of go from braking at 150 yards to brake at 75 yards. I mean, you do it progressively, because if you try to do that, then you should look for help.
So it is a very fine line between the maximum performance and going over the limit.
Well, it is, when you're close to the limit, it is, yes.
So what we have here are all the numbers from an hour and a half of practice and hour-long qualifying session, neatly compiled by Longines Timing. And what never ceases to amaze me is that it shows 6 cars, all within a half a second of one another. That represents 6 different driving styles, 5 different chassis, and 4 different types of motors. That's very competitive. And all throughout this paddock, every driver, team manager, and crew chief, they're all trying to figure out how to lower these figures for tomorrow's performance. All trying to win the very serious game of timing and qualifying. Simon Taylor will return with the qualifying story right after this short message. Stay with us.
Well, the 2 days of qualifying are just as important here at Monza as at any Grand Prix circuit. Monza is a fast track, and even though 3 chicanes have been introduced in recent years to slow down the speed of the cars going into the fast corners, it's still a circuit where high speed is paramount. The first of the tight chicanes comes right after the wide start-finish straight, and so on lap 1, a good starting position can well mean a good position into that first chicane. As ever, everybody wants a good starting position. Niki Lauda and Alain Prost, the 2 McLaren drivers, now arguing between themselves over who will be this year's world champion, are quick as ever, Alain Prost particularly. But once again, the man who looks quickest all the way through qualifying is the reigning world champion from Brazil, Nelson Piquet. It's been a rotten year for him reliability-wise. Frequently the Brabham and Piquet have been fastest. Frequently they've led a Grand Prix. Frequently the car has broken. It happened most recently just 2 weeks ago at Zandvoort. But here at Monza, Gordon Murray, the Brabham team chief, and Nelson Piquet are determined to put it all together, and Nelson starts as he means to go on with his 7th pole position of the year.
Nelson Piquet on pole position here at the Monza track. Nelson, you were faster today than you were yesterday, and you were the quickest yesterday. Where did the extra time come from today?
Well, yesterday was when I did the time, the circuit was half wet, half dry, and it was not complete dry. The second set of tires, the engine blew up, I could not improve. Today I did everything in the first set. It was not a very perfect lap, but there was enough to the pole position.
Every time your reliability has seen its way through to the finish of the race, you've been winning them, and you won here last year. What do you think your chances are tomorrow?
Well, so far everything went all right. I hope tomorrow we'll have a good chance.
Who's going to be your biggest competition? Both Niki Lauda and Alain Prost want the points.
Well, I think Alain and Prost go race each other. If they are very good and they start to push each other, for sure, both will be a big competition. Prost is more near me, and Lauda is more in the back. I think it will be a good race tomorrow.
The championship is out of reach for you now. Does that slacken your enthusiasm to do as well as possible in a race? Do you take as many chances when you're not going for the world title like last year as you do now?
Not chances, but I'm very much much more easy for me, you know, because I have nothing to lose. I have only the race and no championship in game.
So with less pressure, you sometimes perform a little better?
Not perform, but to feel much better, no, because you not have the press of the stress of the championship.
Well, Alain Prost, the man who has led the World Championship for so much of this season, may not have been able to get pole position, but he was less than 1/10 of a second slower by the end than Nelson Piquet. And having lost that World Championship lead to his own teammate Niki Lauda and being now just 1.5 points behind, he's determined to have a good run here at Monza and get the championship lead back, with only 3 races left in this year's title race. Third quickest, behind Alain Prost, the fastest Italian in the race. He may not be driving a Ferrari, he's driving a Lotus with a Renault engine. Once again, Elio De Angelis is the fastest driver powered by Renault. De Angelis has had an extraordinarily consistent season. He's won no races, but he's scored in 10 rounds, and that's put him 3rd in the World Championship, although his hopes of winning the title are now virtually completely gone. 4th quickest on the grid. There he is, Niki Lauda. He of the cold, calculating eyes and the fierce intelligence, the wily old fox of Grand Prix racing, who's now got himself into the World Championship lead. He's got 2 championship titles already behind him. In the old days, he used to drive for Ferrari. The Italian crowd fell out of love with him when he left Ferrari for Brabham. But now Niki Lauda's charismatic character has won through, and he gets as big a cheer from the Monza crowd as anybody who isn't actually driving a Ferrari. Here's another Italian, Matteo Fabi. He drives for Brabham. He started the year trying to do American kart racing as well as Grand Prix racing. But now he's decided that his fortunes lie in Formula One. He's concentrating full-time on Grand Prix, and his results are starting to show it. And of course, the incentive of driving in front of your home crowd is always an additional spur, and Fabi really wants to go well here on Sunday. Plenty more action throughout qualifying. We'll have the rest of the qualifying story for you after this short message. And where are the Ferraris? Michele Alboretto's is the faster of the 2, and it's 11th on the grid.
Michele Alboretto, the first Italian to be racing for Team Ferrari in many years. Michele, it has to be a very emotional thing for you to be an Italian in the Ferrari team here at the Monza track?
A lot of confusion here, because, you know, the people want to watch in the Ferrari in the Monza track. Is the event of the year, and especially now that I drive.
So it's extra pressure, even beyond having to go faster than normal. You have extra pressure from the crowds and the fans and the press and everything.
The pressure go off when you come into the car, you know, and when you drive, you forget everything. It's a Grand Prix like all the others.
Well, when you're going down that straightaway and you see the hundreds of thousands of people with the Ferrari flags,
yeah,
you can't tell me that it doesn't add an extra bit of difficulty for you.
It's an extra motivation for the driver. Yes, that's true. But I think finally you use the same concentration as the other Grand Prix.
Michele, you've had some problems in today's qualifying. Yesterday you were very thrilled to have a good fourth place, a good qualifying position here in Monza. But today your time was actually slower.
Yes, because we have a lot of problem with the new car, with the car with a new body, and we don't understand what is the problem. We change everything, engine, all the electrics, the batteries, everything, but the problem is still there. And I must use the spare car for this afternoon with one set of race tires for balance a little bit, and one qualifier. But in the lap with the qualifier, I have a little bit traffic, and it's not possible to make a better lap time than yesterday.
So there's been a lot of effort going into getting the car right, but it still takes time. It takes miles and miles of testing to get it perfect.
Yeah, but that's the Grand Prix, you know. You prepare very well the car before the race, but when you are here, you have again a lot of problems.
Here's another man with a lot of problems, the brilliant young Brazilian Ayrton Senna, who's been driving for Toleman this year. He's signed to drive for Lotus next year, and Toleman say that by doing so, he's broken his contract, and for the remaining races of this season, they've suspended him. He's here just as a spectator. Alex Hawkridge, the Toleman boss, has given the other drive to the young Italian Pierluigi Martini on the right here, with Stefan Johansson in the blue. So, 2 busy days of Monza qualifying have produced the grid for tomorrow's big race. And we'll be back with ESPN Auto Racing 84 after this short message with the full story of the 1984 Italian Grand Prix. Race day for the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. And since dawn, the huge traditional Monza crowd have been filing in to grab the best vantage points all the way around the circuit to watch the race, which starts in mid-afternoon. They've had supporting races this morning, they've cheered on demonstrations, but now the moment that they're really waiting for is coming. And the grid are starting to assemble. On pole position, Nelson Piquet, out of things as far as the World Championship is concerned, but determined to add to the 2 wins and 1 second place that he's had so far this year. Alongside him, Alain Prost, desperately keen to become France's first ever world champion. He got so tantalisingly near last year. Now he's just lost the World Championship lead to his teammate Niki Lauda. Today he wants it back. Elio De Angelis, driving as ever for Lotus. A very consistent year, but he hasn't had a win since the Austrian Grand Prix 2 years ago. And 4th quickest on the grid, Niki Lauda, now in his 12th season of Grand Prix racing. 2 World Championships behind him, and he's the current leader by 1.5 points over Alain Prost. 5th quickest and 2nd Italian on the grid, little Teo Fabi with the 2nd Brabham. Still looking for a Grand Prix win. His best ever performance in Grand Prix racing has come just a couple of races ago, 4th in Austria. And Keke Rosberg, having a difficult season with the Williams Honda, but he showed that he could get it all together with that fine win in Dallas. The car is getting quicker all the time, and he's 6th on the grid. Missing from the entry list altogether are the Tyrrells. It's the first time for almost 15 years that there have been no Tyrrells in the programme. And that's because Ken Tyrrell has lost his appeal against the FISA's ban on his cars after alleged irregularities at the Dallas Grand Prix. And there'll be no more Tyrrells in Grand Prix racing this year. And somebody's in trouble on the warm-up lap. That's Mark Surer putting his arm up. The Swiss driver with the BMW-powered arrows. Puffs of smoke from the back. He seems almost to be coming to a halt. I think his engine has stalled. The rest of the field all going through, but in one of the chicanes, Mark Surer is coming almost to a complete halt. In fact, the marshal's going to his aid, pushing him. That wouldn't be allowed during the race, but I think they'll probably let him take the start if he can get going again. And Nelson Piquet and Alain Prost leading the rest of the field round. There's Stefan Johansson weaving from side to side to warm up his car. That's the other arrows of Thierry Boutsen there. Everybody trying to get some heat into their tyres, and already the Ferrari flags waving in the crowded spectator enclosures down towards the Parabolica as the entire field comes weaving round, ready for the start of what will be a 51-lap race. There's René Arnoux in the Ferrari. Alboretto's Ferrari down in 11th place on the grid. René Arnoux even further down, 14th on the grid. And Manfred Winkelhock, the German in the ATS, has had gearbox trouble on the warm-up lap. He's not on the grid. Mark Surer has made it to the back of the grid, so you've got 25 cars lined up. You can see the enormous width of this start-finish straight here at Monza, and that wide road will funnel down into the very tight double chicane, the Variante del Rettifiglio, which comes shortly after the start line. Brabham, McLaren, Lotus, McLaren, Brabham, Williams, Honda, the front three rows. The start, as always, with a red light and then a green, which actually starts the race. There's the red, there's the green, and both the Lotuses are the first to move. Nigel Mansell makes a quick start from well down the grid, but it's Elio De Angelis who takes the lead. It's De Angelis ahead, but the Brabham is coming through, and Nelson Piquet now leads. A tremendous traffic jam of cars with locking wheels and puffs of rubber smoke. This is this tight chicane. They're all funneling safely through, it seems, through the second part of the chicane and out through the Curva Grande that follows it. And it is indeed Nelson Piquet who, after a slightly slower start than De Angelis, has established the Brabham in the lead. It's Piquet, De Angelis, Prost, Tombe. Then Nigel Mansell is well up after his very good start. The rest of the field coming through. Niki Lauda has not made a good start. I glimpsed Niki Lauda in 8th place there. So Lauda 8th, Prost 3rd. That's the battle for the World Championship at the moment. But the battle for the race being very conclusively led by this man. Nelson Piquet, there he goes under the bridge, followed by Elio De Angelis. Prost in 3rd place. Patrick Tombe in the Renault is 4th. Now they're coming down to the Curva del Vialone with Fabi, De Angelis, and coming up there, that's Alboretto in the Ferrari number 27, moving up from his lowly grid position. But look at this lead already for Piquet, and Prost is challenging De Angelis. Prost goes round the outside of De Angelis under braking for the Parabolica. That's the long right-hander, the semicircular right-hander, which leads back onto the start-finish straight here. Piquet leads. Prost is now 2nd. De Angelis back to 3rd, and De Angelis being challenged by the Renault of Patrick Tombe for 3rd place. I think Tombe has gone through. He has, down into the Rettifiglio. 4th is Fabi. Right up to 5th now has come Niki Lauda. So Lauda has come storming up from 8th place out of the first chicane. He's already 5th. Prost has moved up to 2nd. The two McLarens are going well, but it's the Brabham that's going best of all. Nelson Piquet leads into the 2nd chicane. There's Prost number 7, Tombe, De Angelis, Fabi, Lauda number 8, then Mansell. Once again, Alboretto makes up a place to split the two Alfa Romeos. And Piquet off! Piquet on the grass there at Lesmo. Piquet right off the road, but the leader is back on the road now. He seems to have gathered it all together. That looked like a very nasty moment indeed, but Nelson Piquet back in the lead from Prost. More Italian Grand Prix action here from Monza after this short message on ESPN Auto Racing 84. Let's look again at that Nelson Piquet moment. The car right over the curb coming out of the first half of the double Lesmo curve. Piquet manages to get the car back onto the tarmac just before he clouts the second curb on the outside. fighting for control at what must be over 145 miles an hour, and all of that has diminished his lead. We've now got 2 three-car gaggles at the front. Still Alboreto moving up. There's Alboreto taking another place in the Ferrari, twitching over the curbs. But it's a 3-car battle for the lead. It's a 3-car battle for 4th place. Here's the leading trio, and it's Piquet with Prost now absolutely on his tail, and Patrick Tambay's brought the Renault up with them. Brabham, McLaren and Renault, that's the battle for the lead. The battle for 4th place is Brabham, Lotus, McLaren, because it's Teo Fabi now 4th in the 2nd Brabham, Elio De Angelis down to 5th, Niki Lauda is 6th. Well, we expected to see Piquet going for the lead. We expected to see Prost as the man who gave him pressure. We didn't expect Patrick Tambay to be quite so quick in the early stages, but Tambay is absolutely up there with them. Here comes the next battle, and look at Lauda trying to squeeze past De Angelis in the Black Lotus number 11. Lauda on De Angelis' tail, but Lauda is still 6th as they go out of the Rettifilio, down the long back straight. And here are the leaders once more. Piquet, Prost and Tambay bouncing over the bumps, twitching under braking for the Parabolica. There's Fabi, and Lauda has done it. Lauda is 5th. Niki Lauda is 5th, so we've got Prost in 2nd place, Lauda in 5th place. There's the leading trio coming over the start-finish line once more at 175 miles an hour. Down towards the first chicane. And the smoke from Prost. Prost is in trouble. Alain Prost, the man who wanted the championship points today, is in trouble. And I think his race is run. Yes, smoke pouring from the left-hand exhaust bank of the TAG turbo engine, and the rest of the field goes storming by, and Alain Prost is parking. Alain Prost pulls over onto the right-hand side of the road. And suddenly Nelson Piquet's mirrors are empty of McLaren. Patrick Tambay's mirrors are full of Brabham, because Teo Fabi, the new 3rd place man with the departure of Alain Prost, is absolutely on Tambay's tail. So we've still got a 3-car battle for the lead, and it's now Brabham, Renault, Brabham. And there is the smoking McLaren. A little glance from Alain Prost before he walks away, peeling his gloves off. Alain Prost out of the race, and that is a real blow for his championship hopes, and that must be good news for this man in the picture now, Niki Lauda, number 8. Niki Lauda now knows he's 4th. He will have noticed Prost pulling off. He will no doubt have given a little grin of satisfaction. But I should mention that Lauda himself has an additional problem here today to contend with, as well as the speed of Nelson Piquet's Brabham and Fabi's Brabham just ahead of him, and Tambay's Renault ahead of that. And that problem is backache, but rather more severe than backache, a very sharp pain in his back, which emerged during practice yesterday. Niki Lauda has apparently displaced one of his vertebrae, and pulling the G-forces that he's pulling inside the tight little cockpit of the McLaren, he's no doubt going to be in considerable pain, as he was during practice yesterday, when he said he was finding it almost impossible to breathe down there in the cockpit, and his concentration was certainly being harmed by the back pain. His doctor, Willy Dungal, has worked on him. He's now in 4th place, but he's out of touch with this leading trio, and Teo Fabi it is who's putting the pressure on Tambay. There is Lauda in 4th place. He's shaken off De Angelis, who's 5th. 6th man now is Alboreto, who's come up well. Then it's 7th Cheever, 8th Mansell, 9th Derek Warwick. And there's the leader once more, and the cheers are because Alboreto is pushing hard. They're cheering on the Ferrari, this Monza crowd, as always they will. There's Lauda in 4th place, De Angelis 5th, and the red car over the brow there. That's Alboreto, number 27 in the Ferrari. There's the American, Cheever, in the Alfa Romeo. Battles all the way down the field. Piquet still the leader from Tambay and Fabi. We'll have more news from the Italian Grand Prix after this short message. Alain Prost out of the Italian Grand Prix. Nelson Piquet still the leader. Teo Fabi in the Brabham in 3rd place, putting the pressure on 2nd man Patrick Tambay. That's the leading trio here at the Italian Grand Prix. We've got Niki Lauda now in 4th place. Elio De Angelis holding off Michele Alboreto, Lotus and Ferrari respectively in the battle for 5th. Eddie Cheever in the Alfa Romeo now 7th. 8th is Nigel Mansell, 9th is Derek Warwick, that's Lotus and Renault respectively, and in 10th place now it's Keke Rosberg in the Williams Honda. And there's a groan from the Italian crowd because there's a Ferrari stopped on the back straight. It's René Arnoux in Ferrari number 28. So while Michele Alboreto battles for 5th place, René Arnoux out of the race, crash helmet off. He's got to walk back past the crowds, back to the pits. And here's the leading trio once more. Piquet, Tombe and Fabi, Brabham, Renault and Brabham, almost equidistant now as they flash over the start-finish line, down towards the chicane. Piquet seeming to pull out on the straight, and then inevitably they all close up under braking, but Fabi putting the pressure on, and we've got a new 5th man because Elio De Angelis has been passed by the sole surviving Ferrari of Alboreto. Lauda still 4th, Michele Alboreto the new 5th man, Elio De Angelis pushed down to 6th, but here's the leading trio again, and Fabi is close to Tombe now. Fabi has a little look at the inside as they go to the chicane, and Fabi spins! Teo Fabi spins the Brabham. He's kept the engine running. Now, can he get the car underway again before everybody goes past? Lauda has gone by. He's crossed the road. He's on the other side. And here come Alboreto, De Angelis, Chiva, Warwick, all pouring through. That's De Cesaris who's blown the engine of the Ligier. And De Cesaris is trying to drive the Ligier back to the pits. No doubt coating the surface of the track with oil. But it's now a 2-car battle for the lead. There goes De Cesaris, trailing his oily plume of smoke. But now with Fabi well down the field, it's a 2-car battle for the lead. Patrick Tombe hanging on for dear life as he strives to stay with the Brabham of Nelson Piquet, the leader. There's the yellow Renault of Frenchman Patrick Tombe in 2nd place. And of course that means that the current World Championship leader, Niki Lauda, is now up to 3rd. It's 4th Alboreto, 5th De Angelis, 6th Chiva, and already 7th is Teo Fabi. He's already managed to get by Derek Warwick. Locking up a break there is the leader. Another little moment for him there. We've seen Nelson Piquet on the grass. We see him there locking up a wheel. So that shows that Patrick Tombe is applying the pressure, because Nelson Piquet being pushed hard enough to look just a little bit untidy as he strives to stay ahead of the Renault. The Renault going strongly in 2nd place, that's Patrick Tombe. Still the leader, Nelson Piquet in the Brabham BMW. The new 3rd man now, look at the oil flag being hung out by the marshal there. So oil at the chicane on the back straight. The new 3rd man, Niki Lauda. 4th is the Ferrari of Michele Alboreto, and Teo Fabi in the thick of the traffic is charging. Alboreto, De Angelis, Fabi, Chiva, Warwick. Then it's Jacques Lafitte ahead of Nigel Mansell. That's the Williams Honda ahead of the Lotus. But Fabi still making up places. There is Alain Prost with a police escort walking his lonely way back to the pits. And there you see the order at the end of lap 9 with Piquet's number ahead. The number 1, of course, of the reigning world champion ahead of Tombe, Lauda, Alboreto, De Angelis, Chiva, Fabi. But Fabi has already moved up from there, and Fabi is now ahead of Chiva, and there is Fabi going ahead of De Angelis now. Fabi absolutely storming up after that spin. That mistake, which cost him so many places, doesn't seem to have cramped his style at all. Piquet, Tombe go through the chicane on the back straight. There they are. And the progress of Teo Fabi's Brabham is nothing short of sensational, and he is already now on the tail of the 4th placed Ferrari. So Alboreto still 4th. There bouncing across the curbs was Derek Warwick in the 2nd Renault. The 1st Renault, number 15, is of course Patrick Tombe's in 2nd place. There's the leading Brabham. There's the 2nd place Renault. Empty road now behind Patrick Tombe, because Niki Lauda is now a distant 3rd place, no doubt nursing his painful back. We wait for Lauda. There he is. Where's the Ferrari? There is Alboreto's Ferrari, and Fabi is very close to him now. Fabi is tucked in behind Alboreto's Ferrari. That's the battle for 4th place. De Angelis is 6th. Chiva is 7th. Derek Warwick is there 8th. The black car at the back of the queue, 9th is Mansell, 10th is Stefan Johansson, and that's a good performance by Johansson because he made a terrible start. He was almost the last man away in the Tolman, and he's worked his way up through the bottom half of the field very, very quickly indeed. That's Derek Warwick attacking Eddie Cheever, and Warwick in the Renault alongside Cheever. Meanwhile, we've got Fabi passing that Ferrari at last. Fabi goes ahead. We'll be back with more Italian Grand Prix action after this message. Still this wonderful two-car battle for the lead in the Italian Grand Prix. Nelson Piquet's Brabham ahead of Patrick Tombé's Renault. It's one of the best races we've seen Tombé drive this year, but another Frenchman out of the race. That's Jacques Lafitte's Williams in the pits. We've already seen the retirement of his teammate Keke Rosberg, both the Williams Hondas out, and still Nelson Piquet having to drive very, very hard indeed to stay ahead of the fleet Patrick Tombé. Still Niki Lauda a distant third, but catching Niki Lauda very fast, the astonishing little Italian Teo Fabi. He's driving one of the best races we've ever seen him drive, because having spun out of 3rd place down to 9th place, he's already back up to 4th and challenging 3rd man Niki Lauda. So a Brabham being pushed by a Renault, a McLaren being pushed by a Brabham, and the Italian crowd are happy because in 5th place it's still Michele Alboreto in the Ferrari, and that's Nigel Mansell in the sand at the chicane, and well and truly stuck in, spinning his rear wheels, plumes of flame from the exhaust pipe of the car. The car is well and truly dug in, and he's switched it off. He's getting out. Nigel Mansell, the Englishman, who's already signed for the Williams team for next year, out of the Italian Grand Prix. A little look over his shoulder of disgust. He spun the car coming into the Curva della Roggia, and his race is run. The soft sand around these chicanes, very good at slowing the cars down when they go off the track, but very difficult to get out of. And Patrick Tombé still pursues Nelson Piquet for the lead. The leading pair just coming up to the Curva della Roggia, where Nigel Mansell's car is still parked. Mansell peeling off the neck brace and the balaclava, and the brave marshals moving the Lotus as Piquet and Tombé go by. Into the first of the double right-handed Lesmo corner. That's where Piquet so nearly came to grief on the second lap. There's the second apex of Lesmo, now the straight down under the Agit Bridge, on through Vialone and into the Ascari chicane, and the smoke from the Brabham. Just as we saw from Alain Prost, there is smoke from the back of the Brabham, but Piquet drives on. There was a definite puff of smoke there. Oh, and again, a big blast of smoke. In fact, the marshal nearly gets his yellow flag ready, but Piquet is not slowing. Piquet seems determined to drive on. The smoke, whatever it was, coming through the left-hand corner. Now he's going through the right-hand corner of the Parabolica, and the car doesn't seem to be smoking. For some reason it was smoking on a left-hander, and Piquet is continuing at unabated pace. In fact, Tombé seems to have dropped back. Perhaps if that car is chucking out oil, Tombé doesn't want to be too close to it. Is Piquet in trouble, or isn't he? Yes, Piquet now does slow, and Tombé goes through. Patrick Tombé's Renault takes the lead into the chicane. Piquet is still there, out of the chicane. Piquet is still there, but slowing, and Patrick Tombé is the new leader of the Italian Grand Prix on lap 16. And Piquet is definitely slowing, but he seems to be driving on. Ahead of Tombé, back markers to be lapped. Piquet drives on, but whatever the problem is, he is definitely no longer on a par with the Renault. In fact, here comes the 3rd place battle, and it is a 3rd place battle because Fabi is right up to Niki Lauda now. Niki Lauda fighting to hold off Teo Fabi. Lauda now becoming the McLaren meat in a Brabham sandwich, but I think not for long, because as Tombé goes into Vialone in the lead with a couple of back markers, as I say, ahead of him to be lapped, already Piquet has slowed sufficiently for both Lauda and his own teammate to go through, and Alboreto is catching fast as well. And I would guess that as we watch Elio De Angelis bring the Lotus into the pits, that we're going to be seeing Nelson Piquet coming into the pits also. Monza always seems to be a circuit that is hard on machinery. It's always hot here. There are long, fast straights with long periods of high revs, and Fabi goes through just as Brabham number 1 retires. Brabham number 2 establishes itself in second place. A cheer from the crowd. He may be driving a Brabham, but he is an Italian. And as Jonathan Palmer is lapped in the Ram by the leader, Huub Rottengatter, the Dutchman in the Spirit, has already been lapped, but here is the second man, Theo Fabi, Niki Lauda third. Niki Lauda was second for only such a short time, and he seems to be letting Theo Fabi go. So, Alain Prost out, Nelson Piquet out, because there he is in the pits, bodywork off, Piquet out of the car. Still lots of action to come in the Italian Grand Prix, and we'll be back here on ESPN after this short message. A Renault leads the Italian Grand Prix, Patrick Tambay of France at the wheel. And despite the fact that we've lost the early leader Nelson Piquet, we've lost Alain Prost, his closest challenger, once more we've got a 3-car battle for the lead. Just over half a second between Tambay and Theo Fabi in the Brabham in second place. Niki Lauda is up with them in third place. So those three fighting for the lead. Niki Lauda, remember, the current World Championship leader, his closest protagonist in the championship table, Alain Prost, out of the race. Niki Lauda very, very keen to increase his points tally here, but Tambay now is under as much pressure from Theo Fabi in Brabham number 2 as he was giving to Nelson Piquet in Brabham number 1 before Piquet retired. And don't forget, Theo Fabi spun when he was in third place, dropped down to 9th place, and has come absolutely charging up the field to this second place. Showers of sparks once again. That's from Fabi's Brabham under braking for the Parabolica. Out of the Parabolica, Tambay briefly getting away a little bit, and now it's Niki Lauda who's using the slipstream behind the Brabham to creep a little bit closer. Renault leads Brabham BMW, leads McLaren Tag Turbo. Out of the start-finish area, down into the first chicane, that tight double chicane with 4 apexes. Lauda follows Fabi through. Then it's the Curva Grande, 4th gear, accelerating up to 145 miles an hour out of that long right-hander before they brake and come down through the gearbox for this chicane where Theo Fabi spun earlier. Lauda taking a slightly more cautious line through there. We've been wondering here just how much Niki Lauda's back injury must be hurting him, but he's up there in third place. He's got back into contact with the leaders, and however much it's hurting him, the thought of the championship points this late in the season is an even stronger spur. Down towards Vialoni and the Ascari chicane. Tambay, Fabi, Lauda. And there's the 4th man, Michele Alboreto in the Ferrari. And every time he passes, the Ferrari flags wave in the crowd. Michele Alboreto, 11th on the grid at the start, not particularly confident about his chances, but he's there in 4th place, and we're once more back with the leading trio, which is coming through the Parabolica and about to lap the ATS of the German Gerhard Berger. Berger gets right out of the way, goes over the white line on the left-hand side of the road, but moves across again. Fabi goes through on the other side. Niki Lauda is still behind. Lauda, did he get through as they came in to brake for the chicane? Yes, he did. Gerhard Berger, driving in only his 2nd Grand Prix, keeps out of the way, and the leading trio is through and now has the Spirit heart of the Dutchman Huub Rottengatter to lap. Rottengatter keeps out of the way as well of Tambay. Tambay goes through, but Rottengatter has to take his line as they go into the 2nd chicane. Fabi and Lauda follow through. Now Fabi darts past Rottengatter. Lauda not quite so quick past as they go through the first half of Lesmo. Now Lauda is passing Rottengatter, the second part of Lesmo. And now down towards Vialoni and the Ascari chicane once more. And that's Derek Warwick's car parked. You just had a quick glimpse of Derek Warwick's Renault parking. So while Tombe in Renault number 15 leads the race, Derek Warwick in Renault number 16 is out. He was running down in 5th place behind the Ferrari. So that's a blow for Renault fortunes, but their man is still leading the race. And there you see the positions after 32 laps, with Eddie Cheever, the American in the Alfa Romeo, now 5th. Stefan Johansson, the newcomer in the Tolman, is up to 6th place, and he's only 0.6 of a second behind Cheever. So that's another battle going on further down the field. There's Derek Warwick's car in the sand. Warwick has walked away. He's parked it well clear of the track, but the marshals now have the job of manhandling it out of the soft sand. And Lauda is up to Fabi now. Fabi, who got past Lauda, and apparently quite comfortably so, is now himself coming under pressure from Niki Lauda. Meanwhile, Tombe lines up to lap Piercarlo Ghinzani and the Ozella. Ghinzani didn't know he was there, I think, but now Ghinzani sees the blue flag, and the rest of the battle trying to go past, and Ghinzani goes right on the grass to keep out of the way. Lots of excitement still in the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. We'll be back with the next stage after this message. It's still Patrick Tombe's Renault in the lead in the Italian Grand Prix, but Niki Lauda has turned the tables on Teo Fabi. Fabi having got past Lauda into 2nd place in the Brabham, it's now Lauda's turn to put the pressure on Fabi, and he's very close indeed. Fabi has lost contact with the Renault. There's the Renault, there is the Brabham, with Lauda swerving from side to side, trying to find a way by. The McLaren trampling all over the back of the Brabham, and Lauda, having apparently been content with the 4 championship points that he would get for finishing 3rd, now seems to be intent on increasing it to the 6 championship points he will get if he finishes 2nd, or even more, the 9 that he will get if he wins. Down towards Vialoni and the Ascari chicane, and Lauda is very close indeed now. Lauda looking for a way past all the time. He drops back as they go through the chicane, then out of the chicane. He's tucked in very close behind. Lauda is very close indeed behind Fabi, and Lauda takes the inside line. Lauda very close to the curve there, and chops back in front as they go into Parabolica under braking. A beautifully planned manoeuvre from Niki Lauda. The Austrian is in 2nd place. There goes the Renault, the leader, and at once Niki Lauda pulls away from Fabi. Lauda is really pressing on. That is Riccardo Patresi's Alfa Romeo being lapped by Tombe, and there is Lauda clipping the curbs. So he still is trying extremely hard, and Fabi is still there in 2nd place, but apparently slipping back. Through the Curva Grande they go. Up towards the 2nd chicane, the Curva della Roggia, and Riccardo Patresi in the green Alfa Romeo is ahead of Lauda to be lapped. Tombe has lapped him already. Up towards Lesmo. Through Lesmo. Here's the 2nd Lesmo apex. And Fabi is really dropping back now. There's Michele Alboreto, who of course is in 4th place now in the Ferrari. And Alboreto, I'm sure, will get the news from his pit on the pit boards that he's now got Teo Fabi ahead of him, not Niki Lauda, and that the gap between himself and Teo Fabi is a lot less than the gap was between him and Niki Lauda last time he saw the pit signal. There the positions at the end of 40 laps, 11 laps to go. Fabi 0.8 of a second behind Lauda, but it's already more, and it's 16 and a bit seconds from Fabi back to Alboreto. Cheever still in 5th place, Stefan Johansson 6th with the Tolman. And Lauda once more using the curbs, trying to close on Tombe, and he is closing on Tombe. Niki Lauda is closing on Patrick Tombe very fast, and he's not going to be content with 6 championship points. He's going to have his eyes set on the 9 that he will get for a win. Meanwhile, behind, Teo Fabi hasn't even lapped Patresi yet, and Niki Lauda is closing on this Renault. it has been a fantastic season for McLaren. They've won the last 4 Grand Prix consecutively. Alain Prost out of the race after only 4 laps with his McLaren, but all seems to be well at the moment with Niki Lauda, although one should remember that in this morning's warm-up, this morning's half-hour warm-up practice session, both the McLarens, both Prost's and Lauda's cars, gave trouble. Lauda's car had an engine change. Prost started the race with the spare car. And on the back straight, Tombe is still out of reach of Niki Lauda, but Lauda turning the McLaren into the parabolica, that long sweeping right-hander that seems to go on and on and on forever. And Tombe now passes the pits, glances across at his pit signal. There's Lauda, 170 miles an hour, and up to the first chicane, the Rettifiglio, and Lauda is very visibly closer now. Lauda has the additional incentive of seeing his quarry get closer and closer. Tombe putting on all the pressure he can, but he doesn't need pit signals now to tell him that Lauda is creeping closer all the time. He can see him in his mirrors, and it's not creeping, it's faster than creeping. That gap is going down very fast. There's a new fastest lap for Niki Lauda. Lauda averaging 141 miles an hour, and Lauda takes the lead. Lauda has gone through. Niki Lauda in the McLaren takes the lead in the Italian Grand Prix. Passes Patrick Tombe with absolute ease. He's the new leader, but the race isn't over yet. Lauda leads, Tombe second. Still more excitement to come in the Italian Grand Prix after this message. He's still there as we enter the closing stages of the Italian Grand Prix here at Monza. Niki Lauda has the lead, and Teo Fabi is out. Teo Fabi, who's driven such a gallant race, up to second place despite that spin early on. He's parked the Brabham just past the pits down here on the start-finish straight. Teo Fabi walks away from his car, and meanwhile Niki Lauda, the new leader, can't relax because Patrick Tombe is still pursuing him in the Renault. And the retirement of Fabi will mean that Michele Alboreto in the Ferrari, who started 11th on the grid, is up to 3rd, and that's a piece of news which has already been greeted with a great cheer all the way around the circuit, a great wave of Ferrari flags from the Italian crowd. They so love their Ferraris. Joe Gartner on the back straight in the Azella with the arrows of Marc Surer tucked in behind him. So Marc Surer, despite his start from the back of the grid, still in the race. That's Riccardo Patrese's Alfa Romeo, which is also coming up now because of the retirements in front of him, but the Ferrari of Michele Alboreto is the next car on the straight as Patrese goes into the parabolica. An Italian in an Italian car. He's followed by the Ferrari of Alboreto, an Italian in a very special Italian car. And it's all over for Patrick Tombe. Patrick Tombe is parking the Renault on the wrong side of the Armco barrier. A glimpse of him in your picture there. Tombe out of the car. He's parked the car outside his pit, but on the wrong side of the Armco. He's hopped over the Armco barrier, and as we watch Riccardo Patrese's Alfa out of the Renault and out of the race is Patrick Tombe, and that means that Niki Lauda can relax even more in McLaren number 8, because when he passes the start-finish line next time, the news will come that that Renault has been pushed away. Lauda will see it on his pit signals, and he will now get a gap of, I guess, about 25 seconds back to the new second man, which is, you've guessed it, the Ferrari of Michele Alboreto, gradually moving up the field. There is Lauda on the back straight, behind him Marc Surer in the arrows, behind Surer it's Gartner in the Azella, and there is the new second man, Ferrari number 27, Michele Alboreto. And after 44 laps, as the Ferrari flags wave, you see 19.8 seconds between Lauda and Alboreto. It's closer than I thought. Eddie Cheever's Alfa Romeo is now 3rd. Forget Tombe, forget Fabi, because Stefan Johansson is running in 4th place, the Swede in the Toleman, 1 lap behind. Alboreto coming up now to lap Riccardo Patrese in the Alfa Romeo. Patrese now in 5th place, so the Italian Alfa Romeo team having a jolly good race here in their home Grand Prix. Their two cars both still running in 3rd and 5th places. Chiva the American 3rd, Patrese the Italian 5th. Between them, the Swede Stefan Johansson in the Tolman Hart in 4th place. And still Niki Lauda on his triumphant way, and there is a problem for somebody else. That is Mark Surer in the Arrows. The telltale plume of smoke from the back of the car spells the end of the BMW engine in the back of the Arrows. So Mark Surer, who had trouble even before the race began, is out of the race. He was running in 10th place at the back of the field. And here comes leader Lauda once more. He's just lapped the Dutchman Hugh Rottengatter in the Spirit Heart for what must seem to be the umpteenth time. And now onto the long back straight, and somebody's parking there. It's a green car. I think that is Eddie Cheever. Eddie Cheever from Denver, Colorado, now living in Rome, running in a strong 3rd place. But now the tall figure of Cheever walking away with a nonchalant wave to the crowd, hiding his disappointment, because so often Cheever's car has let him down in the closing stages. Cheever running in a superb 3rd place, but now in the very closing stages out of the Italian Grand Prix. And while all around him seem to have troubles, Niki Lauda goes on his triumphant way, but he's still using those curbs. He's still trying hard. Patrick Tambay out. Lauda's closest rival, the Ferrari of Michele Alboreto, now by our unofficial hand timing just over 20 seconds behind. So Lauda has to keep the car going to the flag. His reward is going to be 9 points, but his own teammates had trouble. He had mechanical trouble this morning. Is it still going to keep going for Niki Lauda? Watch the closing stages of the Italian Grand Prix here on ESPN after this short message. 3 laps left to run in the Italian Grand Prix, and we've had endless retirements in this race. Piquet, Prost, both the Williamses, Arnoux Ferrari. But Niki Lauda carries on his way in the lead, and Michele Alboreto in 2nd place, lapping the Austrian Joe Gartner there in the Azella. He too seems to be going without problems. So a McLaren leads, a Ferrari is in 2nd place. We've just seen Eddie Cheever's Alfa Romeo drop out from 3rd place. But the man who was 4th, Stefan Johansson, has also run into trouble. He's had a pit stop. The crew had a look at the car, didn't seem to be able to do anything with it, and they said, go back out and finish the race. So Stefan Johansson is going on his slow way, but he has lost what would have become 3rd place with the retirement of Eddie Cheever. He's lost that to Riccardo Patrese. Piercarlo Ghinzani in the Azella, also a lap behind, has gone into 4th place. Stefan Johansson is still running 2 laps behind, 5th. And Joe Gartner in the other Azella is in 6th place. Azella's 4th and 6th. Ahead of Lauda now, Stefan Johansson, and Johansson is going very slowly. Stefan Johansson almost stopping completely in the Tolman. Whatever the trouble is, he decided to keep right out of the way of the race leader and not provide any embarrassment for him in this penultimate lap. Stefan Johansson crawling on his way then in the Tolman, and Niki Lauda flying on his way in the McLaren. Remember that McLarens have won the last 4 Grand Prix. They've already won 9 Grand Prix this year. It's a long time since we've seen this sort of domination in Grand Prix racing. There have been cars that have been quicker than the McLarens. There is the McLaren team watching from the pit lane. But there have been few cars that have been so fast and so reliable at one and the same time, and apparently on almost every circuit. And that's another problem. That's one of the Azellas. That is, in fact, Piercarlo Ghinzani coming to a halt with barely a lap left to run, because Niki Lauda now crosses the start-finish line to start his final lap, his 51st and final lap here at the Italian Grand Prix, into the Rettifilo, the first chicane. Once more clipping those curbs goes the Austrian Niki Lauda, away from the Rettifilo, down to the Curva Grande, and Ghinzani has indeed stopped his Azella right on the start-finish line here. And we're just trying to work out in this extraordinary race of attrition what that means to the positions. But there is the man who is third anyway, Riccardo Patrese, on his way, on his final lap, because although he's a lap behind, he's only going to have to do this last lap now, with Niki Lauda already on his way to the checkered flag. Michele Alboreto in the Ferrari, the only other unlapped car, as Lauda now goes through the Ascari chicane at Vialoni, onto that back straight that's played such a part in this fascinating and dramatic race. Yet another car ahead of him to lap. It's Berger's ATS, and Lauda isn't in a hurry now. He knows the checkered flag's waiting. He stays behind Berger's ATS. He goes into the Parabolica for the 51st and final time. The checkered flag is indeed waiting for Niki Lauda. It's going to be the 10th McLaren victory this year. It's going to be the 5th victory for Niki Lauda this year. Niki Lauda takes the flag, wins the 24th Grand Prix of his career, and consolidates his World Championship lead. And Alain Prost can only watch from the sidelines and know that Niki Lauda has gone clear in the 1984 World Championship with 2 races left to go. Here is Michele Alboreto, and the Italian crowd reserve their largest cheer for the Ferrari, which started 11th, which wasn't expected even to get into the points, which the quiet and plucky Italian Michele Alboreto has brought home in 2nd place to salvage some of Ferrari's lost dignity in 1984. There is the green Alfa of Riccardo Patrese taking 3rd place. And crawling to the flag, Stefan Johansson has brought the Toleman home 4th in his first outing for that team. Joe Gartner is 5th in the Azella. Gerhard Berger is 6th in the ATS. Both of those two scoring their first championship points. And the championship points table shows Niki Lauda with 11.5 points lead ahead of Alain Prost. Prost can still take the championship, but he'll have to beat Niki Lauda in the 2 remaining races to do it. McLaren's, of course, conclusively the Constructors' champions already. And we'll be back with John Bisignano talking to the Italian Grand Prix winner, Niki Lauda, after this.
An incredibly technical victory here for Niki Lauda in Monza. Niki, a great race. Everything working well?
Yes, everything was okay, no problems. In the end, I could pass everybody. Only my back hurt a little bit, but everything else was good.
Niki, were you holding back, waiting to save your tires, or maybe the people in front of you make a mistake, or?
No, I was holding back because especially when Prost stopped, I wanted to make sure that I can finish.
How much does that worry you when you see your teammate in an identical car go out?
Not at all, because it doesn't mean my guy has to go.
Doesn't mean you're going to go out. Niki, you're leading the World Championship now. The next 2 races very important, right?
Correct. We have to see. It's better to lead with 10.5 points than with 1.5 points.
Michele Alboreto having a great day here in Monza, a little bit better than yesterday, Michele. You must be very pleased with your 2nd place finish.
Thank you, and I think before the race it's very difficult to think in this good results.
Well, yesterday you were going to be happy to even score 1 point, and here you get 6 of them.
Yeah, it's 5 more. I think for the end of the season I am happy now.
Michele, at the beginning you were passing 2 and 3 cars a lap. You must have gotten a fantastic start and everything working very well the first few laps.
But I know very well Monza, and I remember when I drive my Formula 3 car here, and when I drive my Formula 3 is normal, this overtaking.
It's not normal to have thousands and thousands of people chanting your name. What does that do for you?
Emotionally it's very important for me, and I think this year we have not a good result, but the support of the fans is the same, I think.
Well, you've returned their enthusiasm and support very well, Michele. Congratulations.
Thank you a lot.
This has been John Bisignano and Simon Taylor. We've enjoyed bringing you this ESPN coverage of the Italian Grand Prix.